speaker today is Holly Warren, who is, the short of it is Holly has a lot of accolades and positions that I could only butcher, and I would do her a disservice by trying to just recite all of it. So I'm going to quickly turn it over to her to introduce herself. And we're here to talk about arts in the community today. And yeah, without further ado, Holly Warren.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Gabe, for reaching out. I'm really excited to start a conversation and hopefully continue it in the years to come. I'm just going to put my contact information in the chat really quickly, just so if you have ideas or questions or want to talk about possible collaborations, you always know where to find me. That's of course also on the city's website. They make it very easy for you all to track us down and tell us what you think, which is great. And now I'm going to share my screen. So give me just a minute to make sure this is all good. Can you all just confirm that you can see that? Okay, awesome. Give me just a minute to make this. Okay, there we go. Okay, thanks, Gabe, for introducing me. Again, my name is Holly. I am the new Assistant Director for the Arts for the City of Bloomington. Thanks again for having me. I have been here for 3 months. Before that, I was mostly a tourist in this town, coming to visit my partner when I could. Since coming here permanently, I have just felt so welcomed by everyone and just overwhelmed by the opportunities, the plethora of opportunities to really engage with the arts. So thank you again for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm going to talk about 3 things today. First, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about myself. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been up to since I hit the ground. And then I'm going to talk about what I've learned in the short time I've been on the ground and how I want to use that to kind of inform some longer term strategic planning I hope to be able to do in the near future. So I'm just gonna hop in a little bit about me. So again, I've been here for 3 months. Before that, I was living in Chicago. I was in Chicago for about 10 years, first as a graduate student at the Art Institute of Chicago. I studied writing. I tried to study visual arts. I learned very quickly I'm very bad at visual arts, so I've stuck to writing. And after finishing my degree at the Art Institute, I very quickly got a job at the Block Museum of Art at Northwestern, which is in Evanston, which I think, as you all probably know, is the international headquarters for the Rotary Club. So they were very much on my radar when I was working in Evanston. At the Block Museum, I really focused on community engagement. So what that meant was getting new groups of people who weren't necessarily like always thinking about arts all the time into the museum, doing programming for them, both with scholars, visiting and local artists, and others who didn't put on the highfalutin airs of a scholarship at the museum. We just tried to get as many people into the museum to see those programs as possible. It was a great time there. I did that work for about 5 years, and then I moved to the University of Chicago's Logan Center for the Arts. And that is this big old behemoth of a building on the left. So at the Logan Center for the Arts, I basically oversaw operations and all activities of the building. So the Logan Center for the Arts included the University of Chicago's Visual Arts Department, the Performing Arts Department, the Music Department. We had music practice rooms. We had visual art studios. We had dance space. We had a black box theater. We had a normal theater. We had a performance venue that sat 500 people. So in addition to housing the work of students on campus, we were really focused on community art groups and getting them into the building to both create and perform their work. So this image you see on the right, at least on the right on my screen, is Deeply Rooted Dance Theater. They are a historically Black dance group embedded on the south side of the Chicago who would always come in and present amazing work here. The thing I love most about working at the Logan Center was that we always gave our community groups discounted rates to use our space. That was something that was really important to me. And it was really this work at the Logan Center that I loved the most. I love being on the ground with community arts groups. And that's one thing that really drew me to this position with the city, is it just means that I am in a way and a level I have never been before on the ground with arts groups, learning what their needs are and learning what the city can do to meet those needs. It is amazing. And I'm just so happy that Bloomington and the city especially has just acknowledged the importance of doing that work and funding that work. And now I'm gonna also talk a little bit about why I do what I do. I feel like, you know, when you do the arts, you commit to a certain salary grade you're never going to really get beyond. And then, you know, you kind of follow the jobs. It means you're sometimes separated from your partner because they were in Bloomington, you were in Chicago, and you're like, how is this going to work? But I think it's always been my love of art and my belief in what it contributes to larger society that has kept me in this role and will always keep me in this role, I think. So really what I think art does, it inspires creative thinking, it inspires new conversations around hidden histories, things we might not otherwise talk about or feel uncomfortable talking about it. Works of art really create a visual piece, whether it's a piece of art on the wall or a performance or a sculpture that we can all gather around that can inspire conversation about really important issues and affect positive change. Bloomington has a lot of examples of this kind of work, which is another reason why I love it here so much. So as many of you probably know, Switchyard Park has this really cool sculptural piece that was recently installed. It's called the Hoosier Line / North Star piece. So the North Star portion of this piece, as you can see, it's like an illuminated light installation that is a rendition of the North Star. And this is a direct reference to the Underground Railroad that used to run through this reference of Indiana. So when slaves were escaping the South, they would look to the North Star to kind of orient them in what direction to go. And so again, I think this is just a great example of an artist putting a piece up that references a really important piece of history that we can all gather and talk about. Going forward, I want to do programming that is site specific here that really facilitates this conversation. So in spring, we're going to be working with a group called Resilience Productions that focuses on creative storytelling about Black history in Indiana, and they're going to do a performance based on the Underground Railroad on the site of this installation. So super cool stuff. And again, just why I love this work. It's creating these conversations that are really important for us to be having. So again, that's why I love this work. And now I'm going to tell you kind of what's here since I've been taking the job. First of all is the John Waldron Arts Center. I think you're all probably you know this building. It is a historic building. Historically, it has served the citizens of this community. It's been a city hall. It's been an education center. It's been a center that has hosted artists with their galleries and with their performance spaces. It's super cool. When I first did my site visit to this building, I was just absolutely blown away. It's quirky, it's versatile. There are just so many opportunities to do interesting things and the really specific spaces of the building, but then in the weird interstitial spaces as well. It's great. So I think as most of you probably know, unfortunately in 2020, Ivy Tech, who was kind of controlling and managing the building, was no longer able to do that, so they gave it back to the city. And the city, back in May, made the announcement that they would strive to keep the Waldron Center open as an arts facility for at least the next 5 years. When they made that announcement, they put the very ambitious target of January 3rd as their opening date, and I'm very happy to share that we're keeping to that. I'm very excited about this. So all of the capital repairs that needed to happen are well underway. They will be finished by January. Our plan is to have an open celebration probably on January 7th. That is the first gallery walk of the new year. And that is going to be a joint celebration of the reopening of the entire space, but also a celebration of WFHB's 29th anniversary. They're one of the historic residents of the Waldron Center, so we really want to give them the opportunity to celebrate that moment simultaneous to us, signifying to the entire community, hey, we are back and we are excited to host you. So again, I've already been taking reservations for performance groups who will be using the space. And we're also making plans with an advisory board to start doing a series of exhibitions in the galleries. For the first 6 months of the reopening, the city is going to be running the space. It will be a skeleton crew of me. It will be fun. After that, we are in negotiations with a third party to take over management of the facility. And they will be this longer term, like 4.5-year manager and overseer of the entire building. They have great plans for this. I am so excited for them to unveil them yet. We're just not quite there yet. So that is definitely one big thing on my plate. I'm going to talk too about my work with the Bloomington Arts Commission. This is a ribbon cutting we did last week. It was very cool. So the Bloomington Arts Commission, as I think most of you know, is a group of individuals who serve as arts liaisons between the public and the city. And they exist to encourage arts and cultural activities in Bloomington. And they do this in several ways. Including just two. They do annual grant cycles. This is grants that go to artists and arts groups for individual projects. They recently started giving funds just for nonprofits for their overall operations expenses. I feel like historically, like nobody, like donors don't want to give operational funds. They can't put their name on it. You know, it can't be pretty. So we're just like, no, you take this money and you just use it to do whatever you need just to keep your thing up and going, especially during a pandemic. We also started doing emerging artist grants, which I'm really excited to develop that program more. We also facilitate public arts projects, and I'm sure you have seen some of these going up as you've been driving down Walnut in the past couple of weeks. So a lot of the larger scale public arts projects that the Bloomington Arts Commission is involved in are part of 1% for the arts. So 1% of the arts is a citywide ordinance that requires that any capital project the city undertakes, 1% of that project's budget has to go towards installing work or artwork on the site. Again, in the spirit that having art on a city space makes it better. It's a new piece for people to continue to have progressive conversations about. So again, you've probably seen the work going up on the 4th Street Garage. That's a piece called Urban Fabric by artist Adam Buente, who represents Project One. We also just finished the installation of the super cool light installation in the north and south towers of the Trades Garage, which is at 10th and Rogers. And as part of that opening celebration, we invited Windfall dancers to create a new piece of performance work, which they performed on the different levels of the tower. And it was just absolutely mesmerizing. The performance they did last Friday as part of the opening was just a sneak peek of a longer performance that we're commissioning them to do in spring. So stay tuned for more information about that. It's going to be amazing. I was in tears watching this. So these are some of the projects that are really front of mind for me, working with the BAC to do these larger scale public arts projects, working with the BAC to get more funding out to local artists and arts groups and organizations, and getting the Waldron reopened so these amazing art groups can come in and finally have a space again to do their work, especially as they're just starting now to do live performance again as the pandemic enters a new phase, is how I will describe that. And now I want to talk a little bit about in addition to just what's here, what I'm thinking about long-term planning. And so what I can say is one thing I've been doing for the first 3 months here is just trying to meet as many people and as many art stakeholders as possible in the community to learn what the city's needs really are. There are a lot, and I started this as like a top 5 list, and then I was like, I can't tell a city of people who I have been here for like 3 months what their top 5 needs are. I'm just not in a position to do that. I can't tell them. Like, there's too much historical knowledge that I don't have. So what I've done instead is just create a list of topics that keep coming up when I have conversations with arts leaders in the community. So one thing we talk about a lot is the need of affordable space. So this means a lot of things. This means making the rates that users have to pay to put their art on the wall in the Waldron or do a performance are low enough that people can actually use them, and not just, groups like Cardinal Stage, who have a much larger organization with the development department who really is focused on getting funds, but emerging artists as well. That's really important to me, to get these new artists who have less experience and less money into these spaces so they can become part of the larger ecosystem of arts in the city. I think affordable space too means then also giving these artists funds to be able to afford studios where they can actually make the work. And I think affordable space too goes as far as affordable housing. Artists in the community need to have places where they can afford to live so they can do the work. And that kind of speaks to the second thing on this list, is mechanisms to retain and attract talent. That's one thing I really think about here. What can we do in the city to make sure that people are feeling like they have the resources here to go see cool work and to participate in a really thriving arts environment? And then I think one way to do that I keep thinking about is effective marketing. For me, I am a one-person shop. I have an amazing communications person that the entire city shares. They're great at getting out press releases and getting the word out, but sometimes that's not enough. We need and I've had conversations with other leaders in the arts community, and it's so weird how much time we spend talking about marketing strategies. It's a real thing. So these are just a few of the needs I've identified via my conversations with the city. And so now what I'm hoping to do, since I've had this initial run of conversations, is to take the next 6 months of my time at the city to start putting together a strategic plan for meeting needs like the ones listed here. And I basically have a really long brainstorming document of ways to do this. And I'm just gonna tell you about a couple things I'm thinking about, and the ones that really rise to the top of the list of what we're going to do to just make a new strategic plan for the elevation of arts even more here in Bloomington. First, we're going to just expand grant and funding opportunities more. The BAC will of course have a couple of new cycles in fiscal year 2022 to give out more funds to artists, arts groups, arts organizations, and emerging artists. That's going to be great. And also, so as part of the American Rescue Plan Act, the federal government gave the city of Bloomington a lot of money. And kind of as a demonstration of how much commitment this administration has to the arts, the city gave a lot of that money to me, which is amazing. So I'm going to have a lot of that money to spend in 2022. And so I'm hoping, again, to find some strategies to create some grant programs, again, to give to artists to be able to use spaces, to supplement the amount of money that they're going to have to be paying to rent studios. Also trying to use it to help organizations be able to reduce ticket costs. So the number of people and the new people who might feel like cost was a barrier to them being able to come to shows can now come to shows because ticket prices won't be as high. So definitely thinking about different ways we can fund the arts. I'm thinking too about how I can collaborate with other entities in the city to create more opportunities to make emerging talent want to stay in the city. That includes working with IU's administrative or arts administration program to create like internships and other programs so students can go into spaces like the Waldron, do some work there, learn how to run a gallery, learn what it takes to hang a show, and even give them the opportunity to curate some spaces in the Waldron. So again, they get like really good on the ground experience of being an effective arts administrator. It's super important right now, especially as the field for arts administrator gets more and more competitive. I wouldn't be here if I had the experience I had coming out of school now. Another thing I'm doing is creative placemaking. So creative placemaking is two things. It is finding more physical spaces for artists to be able to present their work, but it's also thinking outside of the box of a Waldron Art Center or a Buskirk Chumley Theater. So one thing that we're going to be working on is exploring effective initiatives that we can put in place in neighborhoods to empower them to commission with some guidelines that the city and I and the Bloomington Arts Commission draw up to do their own pieces of public sculpture, to host their own festival. We basically want it to be so that you can walk out your own door and just maybe see a piece of public art across the street in a small park, or go around the corner and see somebody like doing a street fair and playing music. So we just want to continue to create more opportunities for people to do things like that. I have this idea. It's called the Bloomerang program. And so I think we're all familiar with the Bloomerang turn. This is something that I learned when I moved here. Is just people come here, they go to IU, and then they leave and they do really cool things, and then they come back. So this is something that I'm thinking about wanting to attract talent back to the city, both to get them to stay permanently after being away for a little while, but also to act as mentors to the next generation that are coming up in Bloomington. I'm thinking about how we can create a series where we're inviting creatives that have spent time in Bloomington, left, and have really become successful. I want to create a program to bring them back to do a series of workshops, again, to kind of act as mentors to the next generation. When they are in the city, we take that as an opportunity to say, hey, you've been away for a while. Isn't it beautiful here? Look at all these opportunities. You have a new family. Don't you want to come here and live again? So again, this is just another program I'm thinking of. Another thing I'm thinking of are regional and national collaborations. So, you know, the city of Bloomington is considered one of several cultural districts that is in the state of Indiana, and all of these cultural districts are housed under the Indiana Arts Commission. So I'm really looking to be able to do more exchanges and collaborations with those cultural districts, just so, you know, we're learning about each other's art scenes, we're growing each other's art scenes and doing cultural exchanges. I think you all probably also know that we recently got a new sister city of Palo Alto, who also has a very thriving artist community. So I'm really looking forward to working with them to do some co-programming and, again, more arts exchanges so we can get the word out to the West Coast about how awesome Bloomington is as an arts community. That's what I've got, y'all. So I know that's a lot. This is just kind of where I am thinking right now. And it's really just a selection of, you know, where I see opportunities to level up and programs we can create to make that leveling up happen. I'm happy to talk more with you about this and answer any questions that you have. Thank you for listening to me talk. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen.
So I know I have a couple questions, but before I dominate the conversation, is there anybody else here that has any questions? Joe, I see you've unmuted yourself.
Well, mainly just to say thanks. Although I did have a question for personal interest. Say you were a law firm with a big empty alley and blank wall that always gets graffiti on the back of it, and you're interested in getting a nice big mural. Mm-hmm. How would you go about that?
There are a few options. So, okay, one thing we're going to be doing is the Bloomington Arts Commission is going to be releasing a revised public arts master plan. Basically, this is a toolkit that we want to be able to disseminate throughout the community to say, hey, you want a mural? This is how you do it. And so that's going to have factors about this is how you can apply for funding to get it. And it's like it references city resources like the neighborhood program that's housed at the city of Bloomington. Also, of course, the Bloomington Arts Commission, who gives out funding for projects like this. So that's really going to be your toolkit. But if you are interested, one function that the Bloomington Arts Commission serves is helping you understand what you really need. So I would welcome you to send me, or anybody who ever had this issue, to send me an email and say, hey, this is the space. It's always really helpful to have a specific space. This is a space. This is kind of what we're thinking. These are some things we're thinking about. And then we will work together to craft a call for artists. And we will also work together to review applications and collaboratively make the decision about what is the best artist to put the piece on the wall. One thing we think about a lot when we do this too is not just an artist who's going to do something cool, but an artist who's going to think of a way to keep the community engaged, both as people who might help paint the mural. One thing I've learned is how much high school kids really love painting murals. Not just that, but then kind of keeping engagement around the mural going forward. So doing performances around the mural and doing, you know, other public programming around the mural. So the BAC is definitely happy to help do that with you.
That wasn't really hypothetical. We
yeah.
said we sold our building to the city. We moved across the street.
Uh-huh.
We're the United Commerce and old German American Bank building, and Atlas, the bar next to us, has a big nice mural, and then
Oh
we have
yeah, yeah.
that gets a bunch of graffiti opposing that. So
Yeah. I know
Are
exactly.
you
what you're talking about. Yeah.
are you aware of the sister city we have in Cuba, Santa Clara?
No, tell me more.
They've had some artists, professional folks that have been up here. They've done a couple of murals here.
Uh-huh.
One is at the convention center,
Great, yeah.
and they've been here a couple of times, a husband and wife team. So that would be a possible avenue
That's awesome.
to explore Santa Clara and Cuba.
Great. Cute.
Yeah, that group also they participated in the Lightbox program that came out a couple of years ago. I think there's used to be on the corner of like First and Walnut, but they have a very distinct and very beautiful style.
Awesome. Thank you.
So my question was going to be, given your experience, do you come to Bloomington and see our resources and then compare us to another community and go, here's some low-hanging fruit, here's some things you could pull from this area? I mean, what inspires you a little bit from other communities that you think we could easily kind of blend in with?
Low-hanging fruit in other communities. It's a good question. One thing I've been thinking about, and I'm sure you all probably do this here. So one thing I used to do with an artist collective in Chicago was a series of neighborhood walks. So artist walks that would, we would take a group of local artists and we say, we are going to walk this path with our community, and we're going to ask you to select specific sites that are historically or geographically important. And we want you to create a performance that is based on this, that we will stop during our walk and do a piece about. I think that would be a really good way to very easily, you already have a group of artists who I'm sure are looking for more opportunities to work. You have amazing history here, so you have sites for them to reference, and you have people who are really hungry to get out and about. So that's definitely one thing I was thinking about as soon as I came down here. I talked a lot about, I actually talked during my job talk for this position, I made a proposal to do something like that here. Something I think about a lot is the Chicago Cultural Center. And I try to be careful when I think about comparing that to Bloomington, because Chicago and Bloomington are very different beasts. But I think a lot about the programs that the Chicago Cultural Center does. They just opened up this really cool retail space that focuses on work by artists. So it kind of works as like a place where you can go buy local art, but that's affordable. But that also, they have a live performance series. They have video installations that are just on the walls of this city, of this center. So as I've been working with the city and this group that's proposing to take over the Waldron to management, we've kind of been looking to that model of how we might create like a pop-up space or a retail space to kind of showcase artists' work and potentially give artists a little opportunity to make money, acknowledging that there are already spaces in the city of Bloomington that do that. I'll stop. Oh, I guess the last thing I've been thinking, so one of the tasks I have is, as you know, we're redeveloping the old hospital site. And we're going to keep the garage structure on that old site for a while. So one of my tasks is to find something artsy to do with it. And another thing that the city of Chicago has done is they do projections on Merchant Smart. And so I was thinking about this morning as I was coming in and going past the garage. I was like, we could just curate a series of projections that artists do, and we could just rotate it every 3 months, and I think that's like, it's much better than like commissioning a mural that's just going to come down in 3 years, and I think it's just a really new, versatile, kind of progressive way to think about integrating a new form of art into the public sphere. So.
Well, I think the hospital, I guess does the hospital or will the hospital continue to own that property, or does it transfer over to the city?
So it's transferring over to the city, and there's actually, so the task on me arts wise is both to do something creative with that garage while they decide what to do with it in the long term. And also that will be my next 1% for the arts project. So I'll be working with the BAC as plans for the redevelopment of that site continue to figure out how we can embed public art in the overall space. Plans for the buildings are not that far along at this point, so it's a little premature for me to be thinking about how to embed the work, but I'm present at these meetings just so they remember art is here. So.
Well, the reason I brought it up was I know the hospital actually commissioned a series of artists for
Correct.
kind of a multimedia approach for their new spot. They took
Right.
paintings and kind of reformatted them and
Right.
it's kind of digital media. So
Yeah.
having access to those particular images could be
Yeah.
good, but it sounds like it's a city project, not a hospital project.
Right. Yeah. And I know too, it's my understanding is that the new hospital site, I guess because it's IU, they collaborated with the Eskenazi Museum of Art to try to do some curation and purchasing of pieces that will be in the hospital as well, which is awesome. So I love that. I also love that there are just like several different entities doing this kind of work. I do think one thing I have also been thinking about a lot is just how to make sure like the city's initiatives around this are aligned with IU's initiative around this and other larger arts organizations initiatives. So
Very good. Well, I feel like we've certainly achieved our time quota for this project, for having you here today. And thank you so much for taking the time to.
yeah, thank you all for taking the time. And it's so